It's more like, hello and welcome to another day in Paradox.
Hello and welcome to another day in. Do you do hand movements? What do you do? What do you do? Tell
Another
me.
day in Paradox.
Just another day in Paradox.
Open it up that way.
Exactly. So welcome everyone to another day in Paradox. It's what is it? Your host, Mr. Nugus. Can I call you Mr. Mr. No.
Shall I call you Mister?
Should I call you Mr.? Nah, it's Nigus and me, Mr. Unit. What are we talking about? I guess another series of anime or whatever, right? Or yeah, it's anime today once again. But yeah, welcome back. So today we're talking about what is it? The highly acclaimed and reward-winning series of 2018, if I'm sure, called The Promised Neverland. I don't know if you've seen it. But I get no for sure we have. Like, have you seen it, Nigus? You finished it, right?
I've seen it. Right? I've seen it. I've enjoyed it.
You've enjoyed it,
more or less. Let's say I binge watched it. I binge watched it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how many episodes were those? To get it right this time. How many episodes were those?
12.
So, you're sure, right? You're sure. Wait.
I'm sure.
Okay. Then.
We're talking about season 1, 12 episodes.
And episodes. Well, how darn it, you're right. There are 12 okay, at least in the first season, right? There are 12 episodes in the first season. And yeah, like I mean, you told me that you binge watched them, and like the first day we discussed we should watch them, which was kind of surprising, but I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like at first, like the first few episodes, no, the first episode got me hooked for sure. The second, third kind of went slow for me, but I didn't even tell you the truth behind the scenes. I actually binge watched the last, I don't know, what was it, like 8 or 7, whatever, like in one day as well. It was a really good anime. Like I really enjoyed it, but it was how would you say it? It was based on like the story it told. You know what I mean? Like it's got a very thrilling and just pulling vibe to it, where you just, if you watch one episode, you just organically have to watch the next one, right? Like, what would you say?
I mean, let's be honest, the whole anime, it's more about tension and drama. And I guess that's what it's about, you know.
Yo, sometimes you actually
gets you
physically felt that. You were in the story sometimes.
Yeah, right? You were really like suffering with the characters. It was pretty good. Gotta be honest. It got me hooked. I binge watched it. I couldn't get my eyes off. I didn't even eat that day. Not the whole day. Like I didn't have dinner.
I mean, altogether it was like a 4-hour trip, right? Like 4 hours of entertainment, something like that. Yeah. And obviously, like, I mean, first of all, like before discussing, we have to obviously talk about like spoiler warnings, right? We're gonna at least attempt to go in depth with it, and it'll probably be hard without naming a few details that might be relevant in the story, right? So there's obviously calls for a very ginormous spoiler warning. So let's talk about it, right? Where was it? Should we start with talking about the plot, or what do you think?
Yeah, I would say let's start with the plot.
So summarizing it for the whole audience, right? The plot goes like this, and I'm reading this off, right? It says, recapping the anime synopsis: The Promised Neverland follows 3 protagonists, Emma, Norman, and Ray, along a cast of orphans who live together. Their lives has been full of joy. This is until protagonists learn, and protagonists with that, I guess the 3, right? And just general the orphans. Learn the orphanage is really a farm where children are raised and given to demons to be eaten. Learning that they have limited amount of time to their side, the 3 work out a plan to escape with the rest of the children. So that basically really summarizes the whole story of season 1. Wouldn't you say so?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's like a short summary.
That is a short summary. It goes on in depth, but I want to start picking apart the whole mission at first, right? How did you wait? So let's tell the audience first. Like, how did they discover that, right? How did they Okay, let's start with let's. We're starting a lot today, but so the whole setting of the whole story was basically there's this orphanage, right? There's this orphanage, just like normal orphanages, at least. Well, okay, at least
At least how
European
you would
ones.
imagine an orphanage in a, let's say,
Exactly.
more like medieval society, let's say.
Medieval or
Because,
early
well,
modern,
not necessarily medieval, like, like, I would say,
like
um,
1800, like
well, 19th century, 19,
19th
well,
century would sound good. Yeah, yeah, you're right.
probably.
Yeah, yeah. In 19th century, like setting at least with an orphanage. Basically, there is the nanny, which
Well,
the
you got to add in one thing. They do have technology.
that's the point.
Um,
That's the point. That's why it's like that's why I said like it seems like it's set in the 1900, right? Or basically maybe even early 20th century, something like that, because they had like some kind of
correct.
whatever. So it looked like from the way people were closed and I guess the house settings, whatever. It looked like it was in the 19th century or maybe 20th century, early 20th century, right? So there's basically we start with the whole house, and it's in this like almost paradise looking area, right? Where it's just trees, there's like a river, it's sunny outside mostly, and there's like vast amount of land for kids to play in. And these kids are obviously like orphans, they get brought in, and you get introduced early to the story that basically it looks like a normal orphanage where everybody's just there who's an orphan just waits for a family to for them to get picked up, right? that's that's
Correct. And
basically.
with like, you get to know this so-called mom character.
Yep.
She's like, let's say, the one who takes care of those kids.
Yes,
Um,
as a
and
normal nanny would,
she
right, in an
seems like a
orphanage.
very, let's say, at least in the beginning, like a very
Pleasant or
pleasant
open
person.
person. I mean, the kids look up to her, right? Like they were lovingly like hugging her from the beginning. Everybody was not every like. I don't even like that. That's the difference that I kind of recognize as well. Like if you had a nanny, right? You wouldn't call her mom, right? Maybe it showed the fact that everybody was calling her mom to show how much of a close relationship they had with her, right? The fact that
Correct. It
both of them
was,
kind of love.
let's say, it was a very mother-child relationship,
Exactly. It's a
and
yeah, exactly.
it looked like there was a lot of love involved,
Mm.
like mother, son, daughter love.
At least in the beginning. At least in the beginning, right? At least in the beginning. And yeah, so that's basically what the not author but director of the whole series wanted you to think, at least, right? From a very surface level knowledge of all of it, right? And then the whole story or attention of it actually picks up when one of what appeared to be the main characters, or one an orphan of among all of them, was
First of all, let's say, let's tell everybody that, of course, these kids um, are a maximum of 12 years old, all of
6
them.
and 12. Yeah, like none of them. You're right, you're absolutely right. So the kids were so there were kind of like three groups of kids, right? There were the ones that were under, what was it? Oh, there were ones that were under 4.
Yeah,
There
let's
were
say the smallest ones, and then there's like a middle group, and then there's the eldest ones, which
the
are
eldest
about,
ones
from
about
11 to
12
12
maximum.
years old, almost
11.
12.
Exactly. So that was the age range between and I mean the kids, right? Like they had multiple race kids as well. Like, I don't know. It's important to point out, but I don't know. So it was a very yeah, it was a weird setting to begin with, right?
I would
And
say, let's get to the meat now, to the tension when the drama builds up. And the first thing that
exactly.
struck me personally, was that they had all like a serial number tattooed on their necks.
Oh, you noticed that since the beginning? I didn't see that.
Yeah, I did. I mean, that was like a pungent detail.
It obviously was. I
I
mean,
mean,
they
how
played
can you
it.
not notice like the serial number on their necks?
You're right.
And that's when it started. Like, that's when I started to realize, well, maybe there's something wrong here.
Yeah, I didn't realize it until they kind of pointed it out. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit slow on that side. But so yeah, so the tension starts, right? So the first episode's really in the conclusion, the thing that makes you like, okay, now I really gotta watch all the other episodes now is when this one character, right, that goes by the name of Connie, correct me if I'm wrong, was was supposed to be handed out to this one, like to the family that's gonna pick her up, right? There was this whole schedule, there was like this whole calendar, whatever, right? And it was established that Connie was liked by the rest of her, they call each other siblings, right? Like they look at themselves as family, which is important as well. And so she gets picked up, she gets taken by her mom, ceremoniously. How do you say that?
Let's say escorted.
Es- Escorted. Let's say she gets escorted, right? And there's this whole like ceremonial process where she gets escorted to like there's like this one main gate which is forbidden from all the kids to visit, and all of a sudden, basically, like the two of the eldest kids see that Connie has left her toy on the desk at home when she gets escorted, and they want to give it to her, and they specifically get advice to I mean, like they can still make it by a certain other character, which we're gonna come to later. And then they basically run to them, right, to catch up, to give Connie her toys before she leaves, whatever, right, because they love each other and stuff. And let's just say what they find was something they obviously did not expect, right? What would you say? What would you say how the story goes on?
I mean,
So it,
let's say this.
yeah.
Let's tell the audience that the story has a lot of plot twists, and I guess that one was the first one, and let's say
What did they find?
the one that
What?
had the biggest impact, at least on
Yes.
me.
Yes, me too. Like that's where I knew, like that's what I really knew. I was like, okay,
I mean, we
okay,
all
this.
knew something was suspicious, the serial numbers. That's one thing. Then this way too loving and peaceful environment.
Environment, yeah. You just kind
And
of had to know, like, there has to be some on the other side. But there was also like a reference to like the whole gate and
the
it
point
being
with the
closed
gate
off.
and the walls,
Exactly, and the fact that
it
kids
kind
like
of
couldn't
seemed
go
all
there.
fishy.
Yes. So, how? Okay. So what would you say they like two eldest kids, right? We can call them Emma and Norman. Um, what did they find when they chased after Connie?
Well, first thing they found, after searching for them and let's say calling out her name,
Yep.
was her
So
laying.
they
Let's say I think it was laying dead, in the back of this truck,
yes,
with a flower growing out of her, let's say, chest,
chest, exactly.
a red
And
flower.
yes, they were building up that tension so much. It was really thrilling, actually, right? Like the way like you appreciate the story, but like you gotta appreciate like the director's skills, whatever, right? Like from the you were kind of like it was moving slow, it was kind of like blurry, and the music was like really, it got you hooked, to say the least. It
And let's
really
say
got you hooked.
their facial expressions as well.
Their facial expressions as well like made you really feel like that it was like you felt it, to say the least. You really felt it. So they basically
I mean,
found so they basically found Connie dead, and beat up, and they obviously like you can obviously imagine how it's worlds apart from like what their imagination was of what was gonna happen to her. And it was like, and wait, okay, so the thrill didn't actually stop there as well. Like after they found her, I don't know if Emma screamed or something, but they
well,
started
something
hearing.
happened, and
Mm,
they hid under the truck, and that's when they
exactly,
saw these giant, let's say, demon-looking things,
exactly.
that had like one row of eyes, which was very weird.
Yeah,
Like,
it was scary too, like how they
it was
started
fucking
looking.
scary as
Yeah,
hell.
it was.
Gotta be honest.
It got, bruh. It's like, no, they were playing all like they didn't. they played all the details. Like it was really good. It was really good. So they got introduced to like basically whoever murdered her, right? Whoever murdered Connie, and it was they call them like demons, whatever. But we can obviously call them monsters or maybe even demons. Doesn't really matter. So there were like three demons that just came out and just kind of like talked about whatever happened, right? So they kind of told like what was really happening to Kanye. They talked about harvest. They talked about liking to eat kids, and what was gruesome at the end was like they talked about like the nanny's involvement, right? The
Of
nanny's
course.
involvement,
And that's when you
and
realized that, at least that's when everybody realized that the nanny, um, let's call her, her name's Isabella in that case,
Isabella, yeah,
isn't actually like,
what you
is
think she
actually an
was
antagonist in the story.
exactly, and they realized it right immediately too. Um, but it got like the thing
And
that they
maybe
played with was
maybe
right.
we should emphasize the fact that these, let's say, demons,
Yeah,
um, preferably eat the brain of these kids.
we find out we find that out later, right? So you just think they just like eating kids, but it plays out throughout the whole story that A, they like eating kids, and B, it's their brains. And if you ask yourselves why brains, like it's not just a spiel on, I don't know, just like zombies who like eating brains. It's more of like they like developed brains, right, from kids, whatever. And this whole well, we can it gets specified as like a farm too, like the whole orphanage was actually a farm of kids which were trained mentally and lovingly in a relationship, whatever, for him to be eaten, and which made the whole thing just, I don't, it really made it scary, right? And
Let's say it's just for the purpose of developing their brains
exactly, they were
to a
tested, they
certain
were being
level
kept
where
happy.
apparently it's very tasty to those demons, at least the higher class demons, because apparently it was also a pretty, let's say, noble farm, prestigious,
Yes, was one of the best, right?
class S products.
Exactly. And so yeah, that kind of summarizes the first episode, right? So like Norman and Emma are like objectively like the main protagonists of the story, basically find a way back to the orphanage. um Although they leave, which was a key point, they leave the toy there, and Isabella finds it, right? And that's how the whole episode closes. That there's like, okay, now so like Isabella knows that some kids know the truth. Like she slipped up, she done goofed up, and they found her out, and
And
sh
that's when, let's say, the cat and mouse game starts.
exactly, and
The cat and mouse
it
chase.
was
And
that
oh, I'm
was
gonna
what made this season like what it was, like this whole cat and mouse of like, who do I trust? How do I do this? What if somebody's watching me? Stuff like that. That's what made it just
exactly, it was
amazing.
like a psychological war between the nanny and later the nannies, because
Yes,
in a later episode, there's a new nanny that joins. This time they call her sister,
she
and
was black. Just to point
she
out.
was black.
That's
Let's
it.
point it out, the
Yeah.
diversity of this
Let's point out the
of this
diversity
show.
of this. Yes, she was black,
And
and
what
they bring
else?
her. She played a main role. Although I found she was really important. Actually, I think she was way more important than we think. Right? Or
To the
way more.
story, I now let's say something about her. I believe she has like a jester role in the story, which is pretty important, and
The
obviously gives the
sister.
story, yeah, the sister, a lot of more, let's say, tension. And it also delivers another point of view to the viewer, which
There's a
is,
whole
she's
challenge
into
actually,
it,
right?
she's into it for herself. She's like a third party,
Exactly. Exactly. That's what
um
made her like
that let's say
stand
she's
out
only
from everyone.
concerned for herself mostly, and
Yep.
she's neither on the side of, let's say, Isabella, because she wants to
She
take
wants to take her
Isabella's place,
place. Yep. And she's
and
obviously
she's
not in the
also
side of
of
kids.
course she's also not on the side of the kids, at least not in the beginning. Later on, she kind of joins up with them. Let's point that out.
In I mean, yeah,
It was like a
kind of.
it was like let's say pact between them,
But
like
we can say that. I
an
mean,
agreement
sure.
of
She
them
like in
helping
a
each
kind
other
of way.
out temporarily.
Temporarily, exactly. That's a key point that I would put, right? But
Let's
before,
say she's gonna let the kids escape and help them escape, and in the meantime,
in the meantime, they would help her
which
in some
means
ways,
that
right?
as a consequence, Isabella would be, let's say, kicked out as a mom and get fired, and the most likely to get the job would be her in that case.
Yes.
Sister Crown was her name.
I don't remember.
Wait,
Nee, nee, wait,
wait,
wait.
wait, wait, wait.
Carol or Corone,
No,
exactly.
Sister
Corone.
Krone.
Crone or
Krone.
Corone? Okay, either one.
Krone. Like
Crone.
crown in German.
Oh, okay. Um. So yeah, basically, but okay. Shortly before we come to the sister part, right? We gotta explain the whole situation with the whole
Which is
protagonist,
the
right?
second plot twist, the sister part.
This okay, maybe I would have said like there might have been like this plot twist before, like among the kids as well, that it wasn't a unified front from the beginning, right? It was like we were led up to the
Correct.
point. Okay, so the whole summarized in a very basic form, right? Two kids knew about the secret, or at least the audience was told that two kids knew about the secret, and they went back, um, and obviously started plotting against the mother, right? So they started realizing that she's the enemy, and two also that she knew that two or more whatever kids knew about the occasion because they left the toy whatever, right? And they
And then they
started
told the first guy, let's say the
Ray
first character they told was Ray, because he was about their age and seemed
and as
trustworthy.
smart. No, no, they started
Smart,
teaming up with I guess their fellow friends, right? People that they knew like the closest from everyone and was smart.
correctly.
So they started teaming up
Correctly
with this
said.
guy called Ray, who was their age as well, right? And they started going to the wall, which they weren't allowed to do. They started discovering that they had trackers in their bodies, which they didn't know was like which part of their body was on and how they got it there. And so they were starting to like plan out like, okay, at this certain time we have this and this amount of time before the next shipment, right? That's how they call the shipment of kids, right? Which in its literal form was actually a perfect definition of what was happening, right? Kids were being shipped as merchandise or as food, whatever, right? And they were really adjusting to their time and planning out like what to do, outsmart whatever, until they discovered there was someone among them um, who was a spy, which was really good too. Like that was really interesting too. Like how they kind of discovered each other, who was the spy, whatever, and
Which,
okay,
let's say, it gave us a lot of tension by watching it,
yes, but
because
also
obviously we were wondering who the spy was,
yes,
and at first I was like suspicious of like Phil and what was the other girl's name? Gilda? Was it
Kirda,
Gilda?
Kirda, yes,
Gilda. And
and
let's say
obviously because they were
I
the
thought it
new,
was Phil. To be honest, I first thought it was Phil, but then
yeah,
later
they
on,
made you think. They made you think.
let's say Ray kind of, let's say Norman kind of tricked Ray into well, he tricked all of them. He had like this master plan to discover who the spy
Who the
was, and
spy
he did
was.
succeed. He did succeed. We're not gonna
Yes.
spoil the plan at this point, and well,
Well, Ray came out to be the spy.
Ray came out to be the spy, and he
I'll
admitted it,
spoil that
and
much. After you got caught, obviously, but you kind of saw like, okay, so they showed that he was the spy, but um they didn't let you think that he was the villain right away, right? So because you would react like, okay, wait, why would a kid just like sell out his own friends that he knew for years, whatever? And the whole backstory for Ray was actually really interesting as well, where they kind of showed you that he actually knew all along what was happening, that he he was planning on doing something for like 6 years or even longer, right? Like, dude's still pretty young, and that he kind of suffered inside because of it, right? Like it
Let's
was
say he suffered the most because, first of
he
all,
knew
he
the
knew it from the
longest.
start,
Yep.
because he was able to, let's say, perceive as a fetus, while he even while he was in, his mother's, belly.
Boom. Yeah. Um.
And after that, what happened? I mean, he suffered all along because he, like, in the end, Ray explains how, he always had the plan one day to escape and do something about it, and search for those so-called tracking devices,
Yep.
they had in their ears, which they later found out.
Yep.
And he was planning, he was kind of discovering a way, um, for him how to, let's say, deactivate them.
Yes.
And he kind of manages because, he has like this agreement with, mom, let's call her, with Isabella.
Yep.
And that he kind of spies on the kids, and meanwhile she, organizes, to get him what he kind of desires, like toys and weird stuff. In the end, he got a camera, and he built this kind of, let's
Tech.
say, electrical device, then
Yep.
electronic device, to disable these,
Trackers, right? Basically.
trackers.
But you
And
knew, but it was made obvious that he's been planning for this for a very long time, and because of like this
and
genetic mutation,
he,
whatever.
unfortunately, what he also says is that he had to, sacrifice a few of his, let's say, family members, because when deactivating the tracking device, obviously, the mother gets a signal, the nanny gets a signal, and apparently they get, shipped. Yeah, exactly. When that happens, like, directly,
Right away.
right?
Yeah, because like you don't want to have an issue or whatever, right? And
Correct.
so yeah, so you got that set, right? Like he was basically the spy. They found that out,
I mean,
or Norman basically found that out.
Mr. Unit,
And
let's say, we should,
yeah.
I would say, what in Europe, like, what you saw, how did you think the plan of the kids, did you think it would work out, like the one with the, training, what was it, they're kind of, they trained to, what game was that?
Tag. They were
Tag,
training
right?
tag.
They
Yeah.
played tag. Jesus Christ. Damn, kind of.
No, don't worry about it. So you're right. The kids, after knowing that and after kind of telling the elder kids whatever, they were planning on escaping, right? So what do kids think about escaping? It's obviously mostly running, hiding, whatever, right? And they started playing more and more tag to like get everybody's awareness, which played into like the bigger question, right? Which I wanted to go into. Like it was more of they started playing tag because they wanted to rescue everyone. The question of but like the question of like rescuing everyone was like something they and with they I mean like Norman, Emma, and Ray, the eldest ones, are the ones that knew it first, kind of fought about, right? It was like it was a really good question about like, okay, wait, so we the eldest ones, the most capable of like physically running whatever, still stand a small chance, but should we take advantage of that and run away to our best abilities, or should we like lower our chances of survival even more by bringing everybody else who is weaker, smaller, and doesn't understand yet, right? Like that was a really important question, and you had like three fractions of it. Like Emma was the characteristically, at least someone like who was loving, more open, and they even called her a lot of times naive. Ray was like the more rational, like just cut and throat, like, okay, we do this, these are their chances, we can't risk them, whatever. And Norman was like the bridge between both of them, right? Dude was smart, but he listened to Emma as well. And then there's like this like trinity of like these people like trying to like do the right thing, whatever. And that was, what would you say? Like that was a really important point and really interesting as well. Like what would you have done? Let me ask you that. What would you have done at that point if you were?
I gotta be honest. I would
Would
have
you
tried to escape.
self
Not, I wouldn't say
selfishly?
by myself, but at least if I was Ray, if I was Emma, Norman, and Ray, I would have escaped. Like only we three, so to say. And
So you would have
yeah,
consciously
it would
known
have been a
that
hard decision, to be honest, to leave, especially like the smaller ones behind, who had no
like
idea about, let's say, the whole
what
problem
was gonna happen.
and the whole issue.
Yeah,
Um, which somehow Norman and Emma
kind of
kind of
managed to
managed to
overcome.
tell them later on,
Yes,
like, and
they
for
did,
some
but it
reason the
was
kids like all understand.
yeah. But for some reason, like they had like an actual genius intellect for obviously their age, whatever. But just rationally, like if you were at that time, right? Like if you were you at 12 years old, maybe even like your knowledge of now, right? Like what would you have done? And I
Gotta be honest,
probably
if I was like 12 years old, I would have never come up with those kind of plans,
yeah.
to be honest.
Like if you had
Um,
if you probably saw those demons, you would have probably I don't know what I would have
I
done.
mean,
Every
imagine being 6, 7, or 8 years old and
or t-
learning about these things from your fellow family members.
I don't think I
I
would
mean,
have believed it.
I would be the hell
Like
to
I
hell. I
don't.
would be scared, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. Like I
I
would
mean,
have probably been
it would
scared
scare the
if I
shit out
believed
of
it.
me.
But like once you believe it, right? Like it would have been a hard time believing it as a kid, especially, right? And it was like all you knew was basically like you were raised by your mom, basically, right? Like all you know is like this paradise, this happiness, food, and this mom figure who's been taking care of you like all your life long, and just all of a sudden overnight somebody comes and tells you, nah, she's actually preparing so that you get eaten, right? It's like, okay, can I really
Obviously, a
believe it, right?
shock. I
And
mean,
once you do
I would
believe it,
say, I would say, okay, maybe you would be scared, but I would manage, like, in front of her, to play like to just play as nothing ever happened. Like, continue acting, like start acting. Like you're like before you knew that. I
like you
mean,
didn't know.
I believe
But
that's
okay,
the
would you
hardest
have done
part.
that?
Not to make her
It is
realize and see that you actually know what's going on.
exactly.
And in that
However,
case, I guess
would
that
you
was the
have done
hardest
that?
part. That would be the hardest part for me, to be honest.
I think I would have been way more irrational with that actually. Like I don't. The thing is, like they were only acting like they didn't know, that they were unaware, whatever, because they were starting to plan like their escape, right? Right? Like how they can run around, like run out, jump this whole big wall, whatever. I think I would have been more like if there's really no hope, right? I would have probably just gathered everyone, just screamed that the mom was basically like this antagonist. It would have probably led to my death, obviously, because I would have been shipped the next day. The mom would have just reassured everyone that I just went crazy for a little, and that they all of a sudden surprisingly found foster parents for me just the next day, And I would have just been gone overnight. And wait, my video's lagging a little bit. Wait. No, you can't do this to me. Oh no, wait. Okay, I'm coming back. I'm coming back. Okay, my bad. My bad. My videos.
You're
I'll cut
back.
that
You're
part.
back.
I'm back. I'm back.
You're back
So the
in black.
video's lagging a little bit. I'll cut that part out. So yeah, exactly. I would have been, dude, as a kid, man. Like, what would you wouldn't have done the smartest things. Like some of the things like the trio even did at that point. Like I probably wouldn't have thought about like at this age. Like I'm 20 right now. Like I wouldn't. It was really in depth. Like you just kind of saw like that they're geniuses in that level, right?
Yeah, it was
So
all tension. It was all this cat and mouse chase.
cat and mouse chase,
It was very, very interesting to watch. Thrilling. I mean, it was
thrilling at
like
the
you were
very
in
least.
the story, playing a role, and then there was the sister character who also came in, and she put, let's say, she gave the plot another twist. Um, let's
She
say it was
okay.
pretty
Why did she get
interesting.
brought in? Let's
Obviously,
explain like why
even
she got brought in. why did the sister why did sister get brought in the whole story? Right, we have to explain that first. It was because, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't it because like the trio were like starting so much to like move to the wall, and the mom basically got air of that, and she wanted like assistance from the sister to just surveil them, right, to just like see what they were doing. Like she wanted the sister to be her pet as well, like next to Ray, whatever, right? And that, so very simply said, like that's how the sister just kind of came into the story. um she was the sister was I kind of pitied her throughout the whole thing. Even though, like, after her introduction, even though you kind of saw, like, she was really scary, right? Like, she was presented in all of her scenes, like, she was presented, like, really scary, like, but not in a way where, like the mom, where she's, like, very, like, she's kind of taken back and she's very, like, she knows what she's talking. Wait, how would you say it?
I
Like,
mean, I
some,
personally never thought she was a very good person.
the sister or the mom?
Well, it goes for both of them, but even in the
That's
end, I
surprising.
didn't think that sister was a good person
Oh, really? I would have said the other way around. Like, I kind of
because she was
pitied her from
always,
the beginning.
let's say, she was always in for it for herself.
But the stories show like how everybody was in it for themselves, right? The kids were basically trying to like,
Yeah,
they
it's
had this whole
let's say
discussion of like, let's,
it kind of represents our society.
we can say that,
If we
like the
go to
main,
that interpretation part,
we can go
let's
back,
say it kind of
we can go to the interpretation part, right? But before that, right, the whole story was like about like how everybody was like in it for themselves, right? Like the kids were debating about like, let's save ourselves, and that's really how it matters. Like if we take everybody else, we're gonna suffer, we're not gonna make it, so like why just drag everyone with, even though, like it'll be the same thing at the end, so like let's maximize our chances. Sister Crone, exactly. Sister Crone was in it for herself as well. Like she played a third party in the whole equation, where she wanted to throw Isabella out, she wanted to replace her as the mom, and we later actually find out like that Crony, as well as like every other mom or nanny, was actually a kid once as well, right? We see like their tags on their necks, and like you start realizing, wait, hold up, she actually knows what's gonna happen to kids, and she really doesn't care, except like her like position, like of being a mom, right?
it's kind of like the story of abandoning their humanity and
Being in some ways
only
being
like
forced,
being
right?
in for themselves. But in the end, when Sister Crone, let's say, is executed
Dies.
more or less,
She submits and
dies.
says like, screw him off, and even like, no, I think she played even a bigger role, right? She kind of left Norman a note and a pen, which plays a huge role later on, or whatever. We'll come to it later, right? But she leaves Norman like a pen. I guess like what Corone was messing up so much or going against Isabella, that Isabella plots against her and lets her get executed, right? um we haven't dove into the whole thing of like this hierarchy outside of like the orphanage, that is just a bit too much to explain. We don't know much about like the granny
Correct.
thing.
Let's just say demons and humans. There are a few humans that live together with the demons and
Help
apparently
each
don't
other
get
out.
eaten
Help each
or
other out.
executed.
No, they help
Um,
each other out too. Like we see that grandma, like granny, they call it granny, is actually a human being that does the actions for the demons. And unlike even mom, whatever, she wasn't it doesn't felt like she was kind of forced to do it. It felt like granny was basically doing it out of her sheer will in some ways. Like she was actively pursuing that life. um but that's a whole concept that we may discuss about like another time, but we really don't know a lot about, right? Like the whole setting of the world. um
let's
I,
hope let's hope it gets out in season 2 and we'll see something about, let's say, the outer world.
about that, but we'll come to that later. um so Corona gets executed, and to the last minute, she kind of thought, no, she was suspicious, but to the last minute, she still pursued like her act of overthrowing Isabella and taking her place. and then but she realized that no, it was a dead end. She was there to be executed. And in her monologue she talked about like, okay, like she basically said like, fuck this world, I hope you kids survive, I hope you guys make it, and I left this note whatever under this desk for you guys to take with the pen that I found as a youngling, whatever, right? And
Let's
that's why
say sensitive people would have shed a tear. I didn't
I
because I
really
didn't
liked
like
her.
it. I didn't like her, to be honest.
I did though. I did because her whole backstory was really sad too. Like she was a kid who had a toy as well. Um, she experienced the same things that the kids were experiencing. She was basically given the chance to like A, die, or B, someone who like helps the aid of others being killed, right? You had two options. Which one would you have taken? Let's talk about that. Let's say you were female, Mrs. Negus, whatever.
Gotta be honest, that's a difficult decision. I
It's
wouldn't want to
not though.
expose myself on that.
It's not that
It's
difficult of a. No, I
let's
would have
say,
taken life. I would have taken life 100%. I would have taken life
yeah,
like no question.
probably I would have taken life. I mean,
Cause
I have to say I can relate a lot more to Isabella rather than Crone for some reason.
how so? Explain
Um,
that.
I don't know. I was like, the whole backstory of Isabella, which is shown in the end. Like how she had Ray as a child.
That
Which
too.
later comes
Yeah, I
out
wanted
that
to come to that.
that she's actually his
The
mother.
biological mom, and more sinistry, like more sinistry. She didn't give a fuck. She didn't give a fuck. Like I was thinking about like, okay, wait. If Ray is her biological kid and she knew all along, right? She knew all along, and then once they like fake attempted his suicide, right? His death. She was talking about like, okay, wait, at least I can get his brain, whatever, right? Because he was like the ultimate goal, like his brain capacity, whatever, is the best it could be, and that's why like they were prioritizing him, whatever. And it got so messed up, which at that point was actually the point, like I would 100% disagree with you there, where I said like, okay, wait, I actually cannot relate with her because she's so sinister with that, right? She knew it was her kid, and she still wanted to ship him out, and like, damn, that was hard. What wouldn't you
Yeah,
say?
but for some reason, I can relate to her because, I
What can
mean,
you relate
first of
to
all,
that?
she didn't have, the reason for having that child. Like, it wasn't really clear. I mean, she says she only had it to survive,
But that's
for
the
the
point.
sake of surviving.
She gave birth so that she can take care of it and sell it, right? So that she can still maintain this position of like nanny. So
No,
she didn't
let's say
even
once
see.
you're a nanny, it's hard just because
But
he's
that's
your
your
own child,
biological.
and
Yeah,
then you
I look.
prioritize him, and let's say you treat him better and you try to save him. I mean, it would be unfair. And let's say once you're
What do
evil,
you mean?
it doesn't get any.
No, it does. It
There.
does get worse. It does get worse. Look. It's already messed up enough that people like that anybody would like basically aid in like the killing of these kids, like knowingly, like even have a smile through it, or like you basically know that you're raising them to be killed, you're giving them false hope, a lie. But through the whole backstory of like, you obviously don't have a chance, like you were supposed to choose life or killing these kids and you chose yourself, which is selfish obviously, but just sheer honesty, that's understandable. But your own kid, like you would, dude, like you would give birth to your own kid to see yourself in them, right, in some ways, and look at them and still admit, yeah, I'm still gonna ship this guy out so that his brain gets
I
eaten.
mean, I gotta be honest. Let's
That's
say,
even more like that's too,
you gotta look at
it tunes
it
it up.
from her perspective.
I am, and it still it gets more messed up.
She gets all these kids, you know, and she all treats them the same way. Why would she love her, let's say, biological child that much more? I mean,
Because
okay,
it's her
maybe he can
biological one.
remind her of the parent, let's say, of her
Or no,
so-called
herself too. No, you gotta realize
the
that like,
boyfriend she had.
yeah, like that one's like a mystery that I didn't
But
didn't
for
understand
her
either.
it
Like
was
who
more
could be
like
the
a
dad?
means to survive, and that's why it's kind of understandable. I mean,
It's
let's be
not
honest. There are
though.
a lot of there.
That
I
was
mean,
the
why would
red line.
let's say you have a family, they have an adopted child and they have like a biological child. Why would they love the biological child more than the adopted child?
Okay, let me give you an answer there, right? Like the thing is like, okay, yeah, you should love your kids the same way, right? But look, we humans are primitive in a lot of ways, like from our emotions and in thoughts at least, like emotionally at the very least, right? And even though we would really want to like love everybody equally, we just don't. We really just don't. Like there is no we just can't love everybody at the same time. And if you tell me a Scandinavian family goes to Sudan and gets the most charcoal darkest kid in their house as well, and actually tell me that they love him or her the same way they love their kids that look exactly the same way as they do, even though they may try, which is all that counts in my opinion. I don't think that's an actual fact. I think that's cap. I think we see ourselves in our kids, and we see like that they're in some ways like our flesh, and
Yeah, I mean,
the
let's
relationship
say
that you have with that other
if she
person.
let's say if she really loved her boyfriend, and let's say her child kind of reminds her of him as well for some reason. I guess that's where maybe there's like this
But you see
amount of
that there's
love
like
that
an
adds,
extra step, right? Like
let's
there's
say,
a
to the kid, like that extra step, that extra
exactly extra. I don't know
that
flavor, but flavor would have been no, maybe even not. I guess it's not the wrong word, but because she's selling him out
a
for
kind of an extra flavor to it.
yeah. But it's like for me, it's a that's where I drew the line. Like okay, I actually do not understand this anymore. But like okay, ship out other kids, like maybe right, like you're choosing your life, whatever. But your own kid, you're not like at least planning for his survival or her survival. It gets weird, but I'm still okay.
You
So
know,
talking
the one
about
thing I gotta
Isabella,
give to her, she concedes her failure. She accepts that she
yes,
failed. She accepts her loss,
which is a
which
theme in the whole
then I
story,
thought
right?
was pretty intelligent. She was not like raging and trying to like
Yeah, she just
do
she
everything she can to prevent those kids in the end. Do like irrational things. No, she stayed rational. She accepted that she lost, and then she kind of
some would say maybe
for
like
for
I would
one like for a brief moment she
she
kind
was
of
kind of
related with the
exactly
kids
that's what I would
because
have said. Like
she's been a child as well one day. She was a child as well one day.
she was on the
Let's
wall as
point out
well.
at this point that it was not possible for her to escape because like all the sisters, she had like something like a device implanted in her that would explode if she kind of left the compound.
Oh yeah, right. You're right. Oh, that was explained by Sister Corone, right?
So there was
That
like no possibility of her
for the
escaping with
nannies
the
to
kids.
escape.
Like even if there would have been a reconciliation, there
Yeah,
couldn't have been, and it was like the departing. They had to depart. They had to leave each other at that point. And I mean,
exactly.
she understood that, and it probably was the best choice for her and Ray as well to accept and
I
let
think
go of their, let's say, mother son emotions.
yes. I
And
would have thought actually like
it
at a
was kind of,
certain first
I
second
gotta say
second.
the whole anime is pretty rational.
That's the
There's
point.
there's not very much emotion except for the part
Although
where obviously, except between the kids, maybe
between
they have a very strong bond, but
yes,
in general, let's say the sisters, they don't have that much
no,
of, let's say, irrational emotions.
yes.
um
For a certain
that
second, like I would have said like that maybe even Isabella was kind of a little bit happy or maybe even proud of the kids what they did. Like after she
Yeah, I
realized
mean,
she lost, obviously.
Isabella and Krone both, like in the end, like
After they
when they
lost,
died,
obviously. I
let's
mean,
be honest,
Isabella didn't die,
when they were facing death.
or no, certain loss, right? Like after I realized that, like after they knew they basically couldn't do anything, like Crony, exactly. Crony, after she knew it was done for her, she was about to die. She said like, okay, like kids, go out, destroy this whole world, whatever, whatever, right? And Isabella, after she knew she couldn't get the kids and that they successfully left, she just kind of returned and kind of had like this big smile of like, okay, they what did she say? Like she did, they didn't safely exactly. they escaped safely to the smaller kids that were eventually left behind, which was just kind of important on the side as well. But it was Isabella tried to escape as well, right? That kind of helped her to. She didn't try to escape, but she had a friend when she was young as well, because we realized that sisters or moms basically were kids at a certain point, were in the orphanages as well. But she had a friend, a male friend she liked, who was playing the guitar, and he got shipped out. And after he got shipped out, unknowingly, she just went to the wall and basically realized everything that she knew, right? And that's how she became a mom as well. And she saw herself at least in Emma or in the kids that fled, and that supported her like acceptance of the whole story, whatever. And it
Exactly.
was it was it was everything about like A, accepting, B, it was I guess option selflessness or selfishness, obviously, and three, it was about, I guess, the whole setting of the world, like that we didn't know about, that just kind of intrigued me throughout everything, right? What did you do you think? Okay, wait, let me ask you the question.
Let's say what I took from the series
Yeah,
and what I interpreted. I gotta be honest. I believe. Let's start with the concept that it's kind of about adopting responsibility and growing up. You know, those
yeah,
kids, when they realize there's something out there. You know, as kids, everything's great. Even as a kid, for like everybody, everything's great.
you're naive.
Kids are curious. They try to find out everything. Naivety,
Yeah,
thinking that the world's great, and then at one point, there's like in most people's lives, at one point there's like this moment where you realize that the world is kind of fucked up,
yeah,
and you
and you
realize
kind of never go back, right? Like you never.
you can never go back from that one.
Exactly.
And later on, you have faith in your parents. I mean, kids have faith in their parents, and later on, like everybody does that, they realize that those parents and
Are
those
have
people who
also like
raised you,
exactly, have like
they're also
incapabilities as well.
flawed,
Exactly,
and
flawed is the perfect
they're
word.
they're let's say they're as lost and as scared as you are.
It's in some ways,
I would
and
say it that
that in
way,
itself is just
or at
scary,
least to
right? For
some
everyone to
degree.
realize.
They
Yeah, I mean,
haven't understood. Like they haven't understood anything about the world and how it works.
they
They have a
they
bit
may
more of
know more than
experience than
you,
you do. They
but
do have a lot more experience, but
this whole
still in
facade of like,
comparison to what there is to know and what they know, it's still like
it's
close
still a
to
lot.
zero.
Exactly, and the whole
Let's be
facade of
honest.
like this whole protector, or like this all-knowing, like supporting, what is it,
Parent.
exactly, like supporting whatever, right? It kind of gets shattered, but because you kind of see like, okay, like your parents aren't capable of like to do everything they want, right? And that comes along with like the whole realization of like, okay, this whole world's actually fucked up, and at the end you're still on your own, right? At the end you're still kind of on your own to like figure everything out, because everybody around you still doesn't have it figured out as well. So you're kind of
You realize that everybody's in for themselves,
exactly.
and everybody's flawed. Everybody has has kind of their evil side.
But it's all justified in some ways too, right? Everybody's kind of evil, but everybody
Of
has
course
a
it's
reason.
justified because that's how, let's say, the world works.
Exactly,
And
because it's like it's the whole environment. Exactly, and that's what I wanted to come to. Like, I don't know. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you the whole, like, the truth, right? Like, I watched the first two episodes of season two. So I just had to watch it afterwards. I don't know if you have. Have you?
I haven't.
Okay, my bad. Okay, so I'm not gonna spoil, but I'm not 100% sure what type of information only came in season two, because it kind of just fused in between. But are okay? So we're all aware from season one that the whole society is, that society at least contains demons, right? It's not just like, it's not the same world as we live in, at the very least, where it might have been just a few aliens who came in and just have this one base on the earth, and that there is like a normal like human society, whatever, right? And it kind of gets told that oh no, okay, that comes in season 2. That comes in season 2. I'm not gonna say much. I'm not gonna say much.
Okay.
But
Well, let's just continue with the responsibility adopting thing.
yeah, that's what I
Um,
mean. Like it's it shows like what I wanted to say with that is like it shows even though if you escape, we can say like the orphanage might be a resemblance or a symbol of your childhood, right? Even though you escape
you
your
know, your
childhood,
childhood
which was
home.
problematic, exactly, which was kind of problematic in itself. If you escape in the real world, it's still set against you, right? It's still messed up, and like you still have to struggle. Like freedom isn't comfortable. I think that was the whole message of season 1, that tough challenges come, everybody that is evil experienced evil as well, and that freedom is really uncomfortable, that you have to fight for it all the time, right? And
Let's say this searching, this curiousness, this realizing things, this the way, the pursuit of wisdom, you know, it's a double,
edge sword.
let's say it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. And
And you know, it's this wisdom, you know, it also, it brings you a few satisfactions. You know, you're growing up, you're being an adult, you
yeah.
know, the fact that you know things, you know about, let's say, a few things of how the world works.
Yeah.
But you know, it gives you a lot of pain and sorrow as well. You know, that's why I would call it like it's that wisdom is bleak.
Yes. Wisdom is bleak, and another lesson that I learned from it at least is that most comfort in life or happiness, whatever, does come with a great amount of naivety or ignorance, right? If you can, I don't know, if you would agree, maybe, I don't know. Let me ask you, right? Since we see like the whole motivation behind Isabella and how she copes with it was kind of explained as well, right? Like they were saying like, okay, wait, why would you do this, Isabella, whatever? And then she said, well, you basically have no choice. Like if you leave this place, there are still demons out there, whatever. And I basically had to choose between life, between death. I'll just get eaten, I'll be forgotten about, there's nothing of me and I didn't enjoy it
You
to
know,
the
it just
fullest.
means that sooner
Or
or later you're gonna have to grow up and
exactly. And
accept reality.
but yeah, my question was basically right. It was about Isabella like choosing these options, but saying like, okay, wait, I still justify like my acts of like helping these kids, and I actually don't hate these kids, which was a revelation, right? She basically said like, I actually don't hate you guys, I really love you guys, and I'm making those years that you lived this place the best it could be. And look, like she made this example with like Corone, right? No, sorry, not Corone, Connie, right? Like the kid said like, well, Connie still died at a young age. She said like, okay, she died with a smile, right? She died happy, she lived a great life, and that's what I
You know,
provided.
she died like for her belief, and with her belief that
Exactly. So like,
life is beautiful.
exactly. So what she basically said, like, okay, well, maybe it was false hope that everybody was still gonna live on, whatever. But I still made you like the best time of like, and like anywhere at this point, and it shouldn't. It's not that bad that you just end on this high note, whatever, right? She was accepting the fact that nothing could be done about the world, that it was set, that it was ruled by demons, whatever, and she had this one act and it was kind of justified because all the like the time that they kind of spent on this earth was at the very least very enjoyable, right? But that comes like the equation that I did was like, well, even though it was enjoyable, maybe comfort and joy, whatever in life, comes from a very deep lack of knowledge of the setting, right? Like lack of knowledge of like what really is happening. That's a life lesson I got from it. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I would also add the fact that, you know, even, you know, like dying for your belief, I think it's a pretty deep concept,
Yeah,
and it kind of also is like a double-edged sword
yeah,
because for once, there are a lot of people, even nowadays in our society, who have like firm beliefs they would and ideologies they would die for,
Yeah.
and without even realizing maybe that their ideology is wrong and not accepting facts. And that's when you get like terrorists and whatever,
That
that
are
kind
acts
of,
of violence.
they die with the belief in something that maybe even doesn't exist. I'm not talking about religion
Are you sure?
explicitly in this case.
I'm playing. I know what you
I'm
mean.
not talking about religion explicitly, but like, naive beliefs, like,
Yeah.
and which is kind of a concept that the anime showed
Tackled.
um,
Tackled.
in this person, or like personified in Connie.
Yeah.
And I mean, in the end, you could say, well, her death wasn't that bad, but
You could
for the
argue
bigger picture,
that's what I said. Like even though it sounds so gruesome from the point of view of Isabella, but she still had a point at the end, right? Like she still said, "Yeah, well, there really isn't much to do, right?" Like I remember that one scene where she broke Emma's leg, and she was talking to them and saying like, "They're like, just accept it. Like this is the way it is. Like you can't do anything against it. Just make the best out of it, right?" It even led for like it kind of influenced Norman in the following to like return and just not run whatever. But it's a whole like the whole series. You could talk a lot about the whole series, but the question that it asked was like Nugus, like if I can ask you, like would you live at least if you could relive the life, right? If you can get born again tomorrow, would you? And the question of like, would you have your first 20 years be the best they can be, and just die at that point, or would you live up until like would you up that about like 6 times and live until you're 80, however with just kind of less joy, more fighting, and
I
like
gotta be honest,
which
I
one would you
understood the
pick?
question, and I would pick living longer. Obviously,
Exactly.
I've always thought about it. I've always been in pursuit, let's say, of the truth.
Exactly.
I like wisdom. I like knowing things. Gotta be honest. And even though
Self-control, right?
it brings a lot of sorrow, and the world is unforgiving, and so on and so on. You can say a lot of those things, but in the end, adopting responsibility, growing up, you have to do it if you want to live on at a
Yeah.
certain point. And if you go on like over your 20s and still don't accept certain things and certain realities,
Then you've missed it.
it gets problematic not only for you, but also, let's say, for people around you.
Yeah. So it's just part of
um,
life, right? Discomfort is
let's say it's not nice to be an old infant, and it's not productive for this. It's this destructive for the
it's
society.
actually destroy you're part of you're a cancer in society.
I mean, you live like in it's like living in a dream that it's like living in a dream.
which
You're
isn't real.
useless,
That's what I mean.
and you
But that's
cannot
what I
cope
said.
with
Like,
certain things when you have no choice. Sooner or later, you're not gonna have a choice, and you have to confront yourself with certain realities. And if you have no, let's say, wisdom or experience at a certain age, it can be kind of a fatal flaw for you.
yeah.
You
But
know,
that's what I mean. Like, it's let's ignore the fact that you can grow up as a fetus, right? Like, it was the whole concept of like, would you have a short amount of time, which is the best amount of time it can be, or would you have a longer amount of amount of time with less of a quality, right? Where you struggle more, where it's harsh, where you're uncomfortable, whatever. Like,
I gotta be honest.
you'd pick
If
the
I was
long
a
one,
nihilist, I would have probably said yes, and I
the
would have
shorter amount of
chosen
time, right?
the short amount of time over
Yeah.
the, let's say, sorrowful 80 years
But
average.
are you a
Um,
nihilist? What are you?
but since I'm a devout Christian,
You are
Catholic,
Pope Nigus here.
Pope Negus,
No, but it's like I
um,
get you. I get you.
for
Like I
me,
would have
like life is a, let's say, it's kind of a whole process of changing and adopting responsibility, and
exactly.
like Jesus Christ did. And I believe maybe that after, let's say, this sorrowful,
Period of time.
destructive painful lifetime, maybe in the end we're gonna have after death some redemption and some,
Some
let's say
reward.
we're gonna have our peaceful world,
Exactly. But
which
look,
in this case is heaven, or you may call it paradise. I don't know.
exactly.
That's what I firmly believe in, and that's why
That's why you would have probably chosen like the longer
I
amount of
would have
time, right?
chosen the hard way.
Yeah, I would have chosen the hard way too, right? But maybe for, I don't know, a different reason. I think I think even though people might have enjoyed, I guess, the first 20 years, right? Like in the story was like the first 6 or 12 years of pure joy, right? You're just playing with your siblings, you're having sunshines out all the time, you're eating, you're not suffering, whatever, and you have joy, and it would end right away. Or versus like the 80 years with like hard agony, you're working hard, you're uncomfortable, right? I would have still chosen the longer form, because I think true joy or happiness basically comes from confronting hardship, right? I think that's what, right? Like if you work on something, like imagine you want to be an artist, and you just get printed out this really amazing picture, and you just get like, you somebody gives you the painting, and you just say like, okay, this is mine, and you run with it for a short time, versus like you take 5 to 6 years painting this amazing thing that might not be at the same level of what would have been given, but it's still good, right? It's your accomplishment. And that's the key point. I think real joy and happiness comes from accomplishment, doing something in the world that is part of history in some ways, right? Like if you just lived smiling and just eating the food, whatever, I think that's the most selfish thing you could be. I think to like I think you haven't accomplished anything, right? You were just a gap in history. You didn't do anything. You didn't say anything. You didn't see anything. You were just in your bubble the whole time. True joy and happiness it comes from accomplishment of doing hardship, suffering through it. Like what was it? The saying goes, right? You can't see rainbows before it rains, right? And it has to
Hmm.
rain. You have to see rain or
That's a good
experience. That's a
that's
good.
a good allegory.
Exactly. So like you have to experience the rain before you see the rainbow. And if you just see the rainbow every day, it just loses value. It has no meaning in my opinion. That's why I would have picked the 80 years, because throughout that time I would have learned something, I would have developed myself, I would have influenced the world in minor ways. It's not like you're going to become, I don't know, whatever, like a king, whatever, but it still has more meaning to live longer and accomplish more things than just have a fake smile in a 20 for a short amount of time, which is based on like ignorance and naivety, whatever. That's how I
Yeah,
would have
I
picked it.
really agree with you on that, and I think that's, let's say, the correct path to take in life, and
And that's what the kids picked too, right? Like if we can bring it back up together, that's what the
yeah, they
kids
did.
picked. They picked their lives and
Correct.
their choices over just being happy for a temporary amount of time. And I would I would rationally agree with them. I don't know if I would have done the same if I was their age, if I was capable of thinking that far ahead, but I guess I'm not. Guess I'm glad I'm not in that world, huh? But
Props to the kids
props to the
for their
kids.
courage.
Props to the kids. Let's hope the story goes on pretty well, huh? I mean, I kind of got a
Props
glimpse
to the
to it.
kids to being able to muster up the courage and to go beyond this gate that functions as a barrier.
Yeah, it's nothing more.
And what I wanted to point out as well, before we move on to maybe the best characters,
Yep.
I wanted to say that even, what was kind of very enjoyable to watch and thrilling as well was the whole competition between all the parties.
Yeah.
Everybody was trying to outsmart the other, which kind of resembles also our society.
Yeah.
The competition thing. Each and everybody is in for their own sake and tries to outsmart the other. And
It was a
I gotta
representation of.
give props to the story writer,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
which
A
is
hundred
which
percent.
is the manga artist at this point. I haven't read the manga. Um, I have to point that out as well. But the anime is pretty good, all
The
summed
animation.
up.
So are we reviewing it right now? Okay, so the animation was pretty good. It didn't. It had no flaws in my opinion. I mean, there weren't that many action scenes to begin with. It was a really plot-driven, character-driven story. Plot-driven story, character-driven
But
story.
everything was presented pretty well. Got to be
Yes,
honest.
100%. The animation didn't wasn't a, it wasn't obviously isn't a
Let's
problem.
just say I would say it's a 10 out of 10 in animation. Got to.
Yeah,
That's what I would give because it had no flaws.
10 out of 10.
Maybe a 9. Let's say a 9. But
I would more
to be
likely
honest,
agree with
right
a
now I
9.
wouldn't say I knew any flaws in this case.
I would agree with a 9. I would agree with a 9. I see that episode 3 is out like yesterday from season 2. Gotta watch that at a certain point. But okay, wait. So like, okay, wait. Just out of the random, we didn't even discuss this. What do you think happens next? Just sheer estimation, even for yourself. Like, to what do you think? What do you think?
I believe there's gonna be another plot twist, some kind of discovery how the society outside of the gate works. Like
Yes.
the relationship between demons and the other humans that live there. There's gonna be like
Okay.
some major, let's say, major shocking thing that's going to go on there, and which is going to be very interesting. I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
What do you think happens
yeah.
to the characters? Like, how do they move on?
Um, Now in the story, I have to say, not a lot of them died, especially the main characters. I would say maybe one main character sooner or later is going to.
No, that's harsh, man.
Yeah, I
I
know
actually,
it is, but that's what good stories usually are
you're
made of.
right. Yeah, yeah. I was conflicted. You're right. I was conflicted about that when like when they killed
When Norman,
Norman.
when let's say when
Killed.
Norman,
Killed.
ca-
I don't think he's dead. I don't think he's dead. I don't. I, cash money. I'm putting cash money on this. Norman is not dead. They didn't look. They showed the death of everybody else. They Corone. They not Crone. They showed up. They
I
showed
mean,
Corone dying.
Norman comes back in the end, even at the end of season 1. I don't know
No,
if
no,
it's
no. He
like
doesn't.
just an apparition or if
No,
he
no.
really comes back.
He was imaginary. He was talking to Emma separately, and he was talking to Ray like imaginary. So he didn't. They didn't fully show him yet, but um I'm telling you, Norman is not dead. He probably got some offer to like do something. Um, among like the human beings that were aiding the demons, whatever. But I'll give you one thing. You're absolutely right. There is gonna be a revelation of like how the society works, how the relationship between demons and humans are, whatever. I'm obviously not gonna spoil it for you, but yeah, you'll probably be excited on that. But I'm really interested, like what you think with the characters is gonna happen. You said like someone is gonna die, which I'm probably not gonna like because I was like, yeah, good stories do have like more emotional things, like they're more bolder with their things. They like characters die left and right, even though main ones, right? But I was kind of dissatisfied when they at least made it seem like Norman died. I'm still not accepting it. I'm still
I
not
think at
accepting.
one point we will see Isabella again.
Oh really?
That's
Okay,
what.
I mean, they did wait. Emma did promise to
I
like
mean,
come
that's
back
my
after two
prediction.
years, right? Emma did promise to come back after 2 years to like help the other kids they left out, like the smaller ones, and maybe through that, but maybe we'll see. You're right. Maybe we'll see like Isabella suffering the consequences of like this big failure, right? This big failure. She had the whole house burned down. She let like prized kids like escape, right? Like there was top tier kids for a major feast that was gonna happen. But maybe she'll suffer some consequences through that, and they'll see her maybe dead, maybe not. Who knows? But I think she won't. Like if they revisit Isabel, I don't think she's gonna survive a lot.
I
Like I
think
think
whatever they're gonna do, it's gonna be interesting, and
a
I
hundred
look forward
percent,
to that.
100%.
Um,
Now let's
Now
go.
let's continue with the rating.
The
Let's
rating or
say
favorite
the
character?
plot.
Okay, the plot. Like I genuinely haven't like seen a good of a plot like this in some time now. Like I would, that's a 9.5 in my opinion. What would you say?
9.5. Um, I'd say a 9.
A 9. So median
A
is
9.
9.25. Um, yeah, a 9.25 fits it perfectly. I think there really isn't
I
much to
would say
say,
as
right?
well.
Like it was thrilling.
You know,
It
at
captured
first
you.
when I started watching it, I would have never said that there was this much to talk about.
Yeah.
But in the end, after like thinking about it and reading a bit um, in the
So
web, I gotta
yeah.
be honest, I figured out a lot of stuff.
No, bro, we left out a lot of things that we didn't even go into. Like I said, like the
Exactly.
whole
There's still a
hierarchy of
lot
like
of
the
things we
upper
could
up.
talk about.
No, no, like the higher up, the whole. We didn't even mention the whole books of William Minerva, which is like a build up for the second season, right? The whole Morse
Hmm.
code. Um, I think Ray would be something we would have like discussed more if we had more time. Like his whole like how you would cope like if you knew something like awful as this, but like everybody around you didn't, and you were still a child, and like how would you do it like if he did the right things? Like that's something we didn't even mention.
Exactly that. Exactly like yeah. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm gonna say that when we get to the best character. Um,
Oh, okay, my bad, my bad.
Now
Oh, okay.
let's go on with the interpretation. I mean, like the meaning of the story. I would give it a 10 out of 10, to be honest.
100%. Like I would actually like give it a 9.9. I'm playing a 10 out of 10. Um, so that's an average.
9.9.
I'm
9.9.
playing
Let's stick with 9.9
nine.
at this
Okay,
point.
let's say 9.9 because nothing is perfect. But interpretation message was good. Maybe okay, maybe like to sidetrack you. Like I was getting like just a small discussion about this, right? Like I was getting like in the beginning at the very least, I was getting flashbacks to maybe like our farming in humanity today. Like did you think about that at any certain point? Like these people are basically like the cattle that we have today. I mean, like did that idea
I
like
did
cross your
think
mind?
about it, I did think about it, especially, thinking about, yeah, well, I'm a carnivore, to be honest. I eat a lot of meat. And I was like, well, how
That's how we
is
treat
that?
them,
Is
right?
that how like the animals feel?
But
You know,
no, it's
when
like, but,
But
but
let's be honest, that there's a difference between animals and human beings. Let's point this out. Beings are conscious about themselves.
I would agree, but wouldn't be that the same thing like how the demons thought about like the humans in that world too? It was like it was a
Yeah,
superiority thing, right? Like we look at ourselves like okay, we're just at the top of the food chain. We're doing this because we can. That's how nature works, right? And I don't oppose it, right? I'm not gonna say I oppose it or I'm against it. What I'm saying is like the demons were capable to at least in season two, like the whole information is like they were capable of encapsulating humans in this and feasting off of them, right? So there's this whole like hierarchy of like demons are up here, humans down here. Like demons eat with the same way how it's like humans and then cattle, like sheep, cow, whatever, right? Like anything that we raise. And I used to see videos like I don't know a couple of years ago, and like I used to see like farmers taking care of their cows, right? They're happy, they're playing with them, whatever. And a month later, they tell you like, okay, yeah, we killed them, and we have our fridge full of meat, everything, right? Like we respected the cow. We gave it, and that's the point. That's where like the whole thing like came back together. Like we gave the cow the best time of its life, right? We fed it, we protected it from sicknesses, but after just a few years we basically just killed it for our purpose, like for food, whatever. And there wasn't like a disrespect between it, and there was like this natural respect and humbleness between it, which is going to be relevant in season 2, trust me. But I'm still like I still saw these flashbacks. I was like damn, like that's how we treat animals, right?
yeah,
It's
I saw that as well.
like their
But
moms, their kids all
I'm
being
still,
I mean,
as
I'm
a
still gonna eat.
as a let's say devout Catholic, I still,
No, it's like I'm still gonna eat
I
meat.
mean, even in my culture, it's normal to eat, let's say, meat, and
I'm not
I
gonna
won't go
say it's.
into it. I won't
I'm
go into it and criticize it any farther.
okay. You oppose
Um,
like I'm not. Look, I'm not. I'm not gonna say I became like a vegan or vegetarian out of it, but it kind of came to me like, oh damn, like that's the type of stuff we're doing, And I think the
You know,
conclusion to it was like, okay,
at this point, we should just learn from the anime and say, that's just how the world works.
yeah, but like we can. That the interesting thing about it is all like we see both point of views too. Like we don't only like no all point of views. Like we as a viewer, the viewer should actually see all point of views. We see the point of view of the kids, even among them the different point of views, we see the point of view of the mom, we see the point of view of the sister,
You,
and at the end we see the point of view of the demons as well, right? Like we're all of it, and that's like what pulls you in the story, like wait, like what should I think? That's the main part. And yeah, no, I just wanted to throw in that but yeah, the plot and the whole what was it, what did you say, the interpretation? Yeah, let's
yeah, that's an interesting idea.
at 9.9, 100%.
9.9. Overall, I would say 9.5. I would give it
I would
that
say
rating. The Negus
9.5.
rating, it's a 9.5.
It gets the Nugu's approval. I give it a 9.5 too. Oh, yeah, we're just rolling out with like these amazing animes this time. Um, so yeah, the conclusion is what was it? The discussion about like who was your favorite character, and I guess what was your favorite line? Who's your favorite character, and explain why.
Favorite characters Ray, and favorite lines also from Ray at this point. No,
What did you
wait.
say?
No, 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 no. I changed my mind.
You change your mind right, like
I changed
that
my mind
instant?
right now. Right this instant.
So wait, the
Um,
character, you change your mind on the
Character is
or-
still Ray. Gotta be honest, character is still Ray. I mean,
okay.
his whole story, his being involved that deeply in the plot, how he managed, and seeing his character development, it kind of, let's say, it was pretty interesting for me to watch, and
Mm.
he was kind of the character I could most relate to. I mean, I would say I'm pretty rational as well, and
Would you
as
say that?
I mean,
No.
props to myself at this point.
Just advertising yourself. Yeah.
So I would say Ray's the character that I can most
Related to.
relate to.
Okay. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and the whole pain he bears for the first years, and how he had to, let's say, sacrifice a few of his family members
Yeah.
to discover things. Yeah, it kind of took me, the whole situation, and
Yeah.
yeah, I believe it would be very, I would be sad if Ray died at one point of the series.
It was pretty close, I'm
Um,
not gonna lie. It was pretty close.
it was pretty close.
Yeah.
And my favorite quote is from Isabella, and
Mhm.
it goes, "I lost, go on, please be careful, and I pray that you will find light."
Oh, was it right at the end, right?
Right at the end, and that's when she accepts failure, when she accepts, let's say, her loss, and I believe that's a pretty deep quote. And the "find light" quote, light as an enlightenment, maybe, which is pretty interesting.
It really is.
Find hope, maybe, because let's be honest, it was a pretty desperate situation,
Mm.
and yeah,
It's
maybe the
I
light she wasn't able to find. So,
yeah, I think okay, so like so your favorite
so what's been your favorite quote and your favorite character?
my favorite character is, I've been battling that, right? I don't think Norman is my favorite character, but I think he's a bit too smart for me. Emma's a bit too naive. I would have I would have leaned a bit more Ray too, but throughout the whole discussion, whatever, I think I wouldn't say I relate more, but I understood Isabella the most. I think she was evil, especially with now I would say like she only was evil because of her son thing, like giving birth to her son and prioritizing him, not in the way you think like a mom would prioritize her kid, but in the way that she wants that to be like a payoff. She doesn't care about that. I would say like that was the only like evil part that I would have probably like disavowed. But other than that, I think she's the most conflicted and the most interesting out of everyone because she's experienced it as a child, like her friend being like killed, and she's experienced that like idea of escaping and like she through that, like the whole concept of like um the whole world being against you, that you're helpless, like settled in her mind, so that she basically caved in and tried to be like the best that she can make out of it. I think that's something like to take away from her, and that's something like that would resonate with me a bit more, like accepting like the cruel realities of the world and trying to do the best thing out of it, right? um yeah, I think she was, in my opinion, I would have said like she was actually the most rational out of everyone, like even the kids, um, and helpless in some ways maybe too. But um favorite line, I wouldn't remember anything, but like if we count in speeches, like something that comes to mind every time is like when she broke Emma's leg. um Once again, she was talking about like how the world is cruel, that she basically explained that she was forced into everything, and it all made sense. I think that was the monologue I would have probably prioritized, and Isabella was probably the most interesting character. It's sad
Yeah,
to
that
see
was
her
an
go away.
interesting scene as well.
And she was scary throughout the whole story too. Like she was, damn, no, she was, yeah, she was interesting. But yeah, that's
What I wanted to add before we end this episode is
mm,
I have a list of awards and nominations.
it won a lot, right?
It won a lot, and I'm gonna talk about a few characters that won like the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, and let's say Isabella was won the best antagonist award,
Damn, that's what I'm
um,
saying. The Skoger.
and it also won the best fantasy award, like in The Promised Neverland in general.
Yeah, it's.
So, well, it is kind of fantasy. Would you say it's like 100% fantasy?
I
I
wouldn't.
mean,
I mean, they did bring in like the whole demons and everything, and you'll see it like the whole fantasy concept of it like kind of settles more in season two. You'll probably see that, but like it was more of like this, like you said, like this cat and mouse play, and this whole idea of like beasts outside. Even though we saw them in episode one, they still played like in the background a bigger role. That's why I wouldn't have said it was a fantasy, more of like a thriller. um yeah, that's how I would have put it. But the fantasy thing is obviously correct.
yes.
That's what I would have said.
Okay, maybe we
What
should
do,
round it up at this point.
we should round it up by also letting everybody know there is actually a real life adaptation of it. I sent you a trailer yesterday. Did you see it?
I've watched it, and I
You
thought
watched the movie?
it was pretty interesting to be honest. Like the characters pretty much resembled
Exactly. It was like a
um
carbon copy of like the whole
the
series.
actors.
Except
So
except Miss Crone, or Sister Crone, wasn't black, which is kind of annoying. No, I'm playing. I didn't even care. But she wasn't. I think it's still, it was hard to see like Miss Crone and be scared of her. It was like in real life. I mean, there are obviously like problems with that, right? Cause like
yeah, she
remember like how
like
they
in the anime she kind of has
had like,
a
these
lot
weird eyes, right? Like she
a
used to
very
like be,
a larger impact. This weird kind of
she
craziness of her is portrayed way better in the anime.
exactly, and along like generally like the sister and the mom even appear to be like way bigger in the anime than like, and compared to the kids, right? Like even just height form. But in the anime it's like, well, you got a bunch of kids who are just like at the same height as the mom or whatever. It doesn't have the same feeling. It looked interesting. I'm not gonna lie, probably not gonna watch it, but I don't know. It seemed pretty cool. Are you gonna watch it?
Nah, I wouldn't say.
Okay. Too bad actually. But yeah, should we sum this up? Conclude it? What would you
Yes.
say? You got anything else to say, Mr. Nugus?
Mr. Nicholas. No,
No.
I haven't got anything to say, Mr. Unit. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, that's it. I think that wraps it up. Thank you for following the whole journey of talking about The Promised Neverland. A great series, 100% recommended. Um, and yeah, what are
And
we
join
gonna,
us next week for the next Unraveling episode.
uh, are
We
we
still
gonna
don't
watch?
know which anime we're gonna do it about or which movie
We
we're
still
gonna
don't
do
know.
it about.
But I guess that's part of the mystery as well. So yeah, you covered that along with us. So yeah, another episode. Let's go. Yeah, we can cut it right here.
We can cut it right here.